Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pro Physique Code. This is our first podcast that we're recording in the new year. I think we probably had some come out by now. I don't know. Did we have one? No, because it's only Thursday.
No, we did. We had, well, not the prep, not us, but I know our lifestyle crew had an episode that came out on the 2nd. So today when we're recording.
Yeah, and Lexi and Evan, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, they decided to coordinate and not include me in their color schemes for the day. So we're going to be reprimanding them behind the scenes. But today's podcast, we're going to talk about how the fit model division, the new division announced by the NPC, which has kind of like taken, probably a little bit of a quiet time in the competition world. And it's all anyone's talking about. It's been a hot topic of conversation. And, I want to talk about this concept of the fit model division, basically killing bikini and pro bikini and changing the whole landscape of women's competition in the future, and I'm going to give you guys some evidence in my opinion, and just talk about the history of the female competition divisions. I think it's possible.
Yeah. And I know since you and I did our podcast, Paul, about this division right after it was announced, like there's been a lot of, I don't know, new thoughts I've had, and also there's been some updates about it. So definitely, I think it's good to do this episode, even if people are tired of hearing about it. I think it's just interesting to hear more perspective as the time goes by.
So I have two questions. The updates, the only one I know of was they did announce that you can have the scrunch bottom,
Yeah.
but the coverage still looks really large, like the suit bottoms.
Yeah, so I know, like for example, Angel Competition Bikinis, I know that they've been working a lot behind the scenes with, I want to say, with like the NPC. They haven't, they may have announced the official bottom coverage, but I know you're right. Like originally, the NPC announced that there was not going to be a scrunch allowed. However, I think some of the suit companies advocated for a scrunch because if you know anything about like the suit bottoms, if there is no scrunch, like for lack of better terms, it kind of almost feels like wearing a diaper in a way. So they advocated for the scrunch, and now they're allowing the scrunch on stage, but it still is, it is pretty, it's a lot more coverage than like if you're a bikini girl used to wearing a pro cut, that's going to be the most standard coverage for a bikini girl on an NPC stage. This cut it's like double the size. Like it's still quite a bit of coverage. It's almost kind of like if you're going to wear a bathing suit that's like a little cheeky, like that's kind of the
bathing suit on a family vacation. That's what it is.
Right. Exactly. But I'm, I'll be curious how the suit requirements evolve with time. And when I say that, I'm not saying I don't foresee the suits like eventually being like crystallized, but in terms of like the fabric, right? Like, are they going to allow velvet? Are they going to require just like a solid like hologram fabric? So it'll just be kind of interesting to keep up with that over time.
And I believe like the suit company like Anastasia, who does a lot of the suits for a lot of people, I think she came out with one, and the prices of those I think are around like $120, which is what I assume they were probably going to be, pretty much like a posing suit.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. Yeah.
Well, and listen, if I'm being honest, I don't think the suit's going to have much of an impact on the competitor. I'm pretty sure girls are going to be able to go to Target, walk in a suit, because this division is going to be based on overall stage presence and beauty and, flow of the physique. I do not think the judges are going to be picking people apart on, she's got a little more shoulder. Oh, she's a little tighter here. I think this is going to be more of a
model
where like it's a little bit less subjective. Like it's going to be harder on the feedback front, because I think there's going to be, and we've all witnessed it. We've all been at a show and a girl walked out on stage and you're just like, damn, like she just got confidence. Like she's just smiling. She looks at home up there, great conditioning. But as far as the bikini criteria, she might not be the best. And she might actually lose because in the front pose, another girl has a little more glute pop but this, you just can't take your eye off this person. And I think that's going to be, at least in the beginning, a lot of it, the fit model. So you're going to have girls that have never competed before go right to the top of the sport because they have wow factor, or,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I,
you know
I,
who I see thriving in this division is a lot of girls who, and I mean, I have a couple of them, and I'm sure you guys have had, these types of girls before, but like girls who have a background in like pageants. I feel like this is going to be very much suited towards them because, like we talked about even before we started recording this episode, I think like that it factor, that model-esque, that beauty, just the confidence, the poise on stage, like that is going to be really, really important. I'm not saying that that's going to like you could go on stage with like a crappy physique and win from that, but I think that the beauty essence, I mean, gosh, it's named fit model, I think that's going to be a big part of it. And I see a lot of girls with pageant backgrounds, I mean, definitely having that, specifically having just that confidence in their demeanor when they get on stage.
and look, they named it
it's
Fit Model for a reason, right? That's what the name of the division is too. And Tyler Straight came out and said, like, they're going to be judging everything, the makeup, the hair, the walk, even though it's not a lot of time on stage, that time on stage is going to be very, very important in the routine, and all that will be judged and played into everything, unlike a lot of the other divisions.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think the bikini division used to be. You used to be able to separate yourself with stage presence. And I do not think the judges are judging you until you are lined up side by side. Now, stage presence may matter a slight bit in a very close competition where they can go, okay, this girl has a little more pep in her step. She's a little more, confident. But for the most part, the judges are judging it in the bikini division more like pure bodybuilding. Okay, everybody in your front pose. Okay, let's move you two. Okay, everybody in your back pose. Let's move you two. I do not think that they're watching the routines going, ooh, this girl's got some wow factor. Whereas I think with this division, there's going to be a lot of emphasis placed on that.
Mhm.
And Lexi, you said before we started this podcast, you've heard some negatives about people saying, well, I'm not going to coach this division. Um, and maybe that's why, because if there's less objectives that you can control as a coach, you know,
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also, well, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I feel like you guys probably have very similar opinions, but as a coach, like I could see that side of things, but I'm personally really excited because I feel like being somebody that works with a lot of newer competitors, or, for example, I have a lot of girls that come to me with the intention of they want to work towards getting on stage, but we know that they need to put on an ample amount of muscle before doing so. So we're kind of in that pre-prep phase, but like this gets me really excited because it's going to give the opportunity for those girls to get on stage a little bit sooner, right? Like as opposed to having to just hunker down and build for, maybe a couple of years. Now, I've also had like a couple of girls, I can think of two off the top of my head that I currently work with. And, they've explicitly told me, they're like, yes, I probably would fit model a little bit better this year, but I don't want to do it. I want to work
Mhm.
towards bikini and I want to build and I want to push myself, in that nature. So I've had a couple of girls on that side of things as too, which of course I respect.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I have some girls that right now I know would walk in and do very well in that division, but they are not interested. They want to stay in bikini. They want to go the route, and I'm awesome. I'm happy with that. Then I have a bunch of girls that are really interested in that division because their goals are different, right? Some girls want to be better and place better quicker and earlier. That to them is more important than that. If there's a division that more fits where they are right now, that's the route they want to go. Other people want to be a little more patient with it. And yeah, I mean, I think it's another thing we can address in this podcast too is like some of the negative feedback on the division too. Obviously, we don't exactly know how it's going to be judged. It's going to be more subjective than objective. But until the shows start rolling out and we see how things are judged and how things are placed, we're all just kind of speculating right now on how it's going to go. Obviously, we have the information from Tyler that came out. I know there was just a podcast that came out this morning with Tamer or Tarek, I mean, and like Laura Lee and Ashley Coltwalser and Linda Murray talking about it too. And it's all very, very similar stuff. And they were talking a lot how much of a genetics is going to play in this role in body shape, more so because there's only so much muscle you're going to be able to add to create that hourglass shape, right? In this division to still meet the criteria. And where people hold their body fat too. I mean, some girls we know get really lean up top, right? Before they even get lean enough in the bottom for this division, and then are going to be too hard up top.
That's
So
yeah.
that's a
genetics will play a role in this.
Yeah, I feel like a big common misconception, and I think it's kind of dialed down a little bit, but I feel like originally when this division was announced, a common misconception amongst a lot of people was like, oh, well, this is just going to be a look that like you could walk on stage with, and it's
I
going to
don't
be
believe that at
easy,
all.
right? And I think hopefully like we're past that a little bit as people have educated themselves a bit more. Because I mean, gosh, even if you look back, like go do some research, look at you know Ashley Kay and like these top level bikini competitors in 2015, like they still have muscle. And to your point, Evan, it is going to be a lot in terms of genetics, because that's a great point. We see a lot of girls getting like they're ready in their front pose, they get super shredded in their abs and in their upper body before they get that lower body conditioning. So
Even conditioned up for this division too. Like this
yeah.
is not a walk off the street in this division. They're still talking about a high level Olympian in 2015. Just because she doesn't have etched in tie-ins, and she is still very, very lean, people, and she still has a decent amount of muscle on her.
I feel like a big, I mean, I feel like we hear with a lot of bikini competitors, the feedback is for a lot of people is more glute depth, more glute density,
Mhm.
right? I almost feel like for this new division, it's going to be more upper body size. So that way they're not getting too lean in their upper body to get that lower body conditioning. So I feel like we're going to see more of that feedback in this division. I don't know. That's just a prediction.
It's
I
gonna
mean,
be
they
fun too
don't
for
want,
peaking, pumping up. All that stuff is gonna play important in this too. There's
yeah.
there's a lot of factors people don't think about to create this look. It's not an easy look to create. Like not when you're going up against a bunch of other people. Now, a bunch of these girls standing by themselves will look awesome, but when you start putting them next to each other and you start factoring all this in, a lot more goes into this division than a lot of other divisions. A lot of other divisions, it's how you hit your poses, do you have enough muscle, and how's your flow and shape. This one, there's a lot of other factors.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my clients when it comes to the suit, the hair, the makeup, the tan, all the glam, right? Of course, obviously the physique is like the most important part. But when you get higher up with these, levels of shows, or let's say you're at a national show where for the most part everybody looks really damn good physique wise, these little details such as the stage glam, they matter even more, right? So I think in a division like fit model, you're going to see a lot of girls with a really good, like maybe equal physique, but it's going to be these little details in terms of the glam, the presence, the confidence that are going to really be the differentiators when it comes to the placements.
This is the way I kind of look at when it comes to stage presence things. All of us have gone to a lot of shows, right? And we see girls that get up on stage. We're talking about the bikini division here, and their presentation is beautiful, right? They're very pretty, they're stunning, their movements are great, they're fluid, their physiques are great. And then you see someone like Laura Lee come out and do her presentation, and it's just like way above and beyond most other girls. It is.
Well,
And like
here's the
how she
thing.
captivates the judges, all that's
The
you got to take that and bring it into another division.
Yeah, the thing about the stage presence in the bikini division is that they killed it because
Hmm.
we've all been at bikini pro shows where the girls are ready to do a 30-second, 40-second routine and they're like, "Okay, ladies, no routines today. Just go to the box, hit your poses and walk off." Like that happens, I mean, honestly, more often than not anymore. I can't even
Hmm.
remember the last time. The only shows where stage routines are like allowed and encouraged are the Arnold
Yep.
and the Olympia. And even at the Olympia, when you've got 52 girls, not many of those girls want to do a full routine. They want to get in and
Hmm.
get out and get, because it's an hour between groups, posing, and then call outs, right? So they're not trying to drag it out. But at the Arnold, they only have 12 competitors. So Laura Lee's routine at last year's Arnold
That's what I was
was
speaking about. Yeah.
insane. I mean, she obviously put so much time and effort into that, but that's because she knew, okay, there's 12 girls. We're in an expo with thousands of people watching. It was brilliant on her part. And honestly, it probably won her the show because I thought it was very close with Amy with the physique, but I thought Laura Lee just like was that the one you and I were sitting together, Lexi?
Yeah, and I
Yes.
was standing
Yeah.
right behind you. That's specifically the show I was talking about with that too, because
Yeah.
everyone was really good, but when she walked out, it was like on a whole different
She
level.
stopped at the back. She held her hand above her head. She had this entire choreographed thing that didn't feel forced. That's the other thing.
Nope.
Sometimes you're like, that's awkward. It didn't feel forced. It felt like the coronation, like you're welcome.
It
Um, so it'll be
was
interesting to see
very
how that translates to the fit model. Obviously, at that level, they'll have the time. But even at these little local shows, like you said, Lexi, if you have a background in dance, if you have a background in gymnastics, if you have a background in pageants, that eye contact, confidence, coming out and like just grabbing attention, that doesn't come natural for a lot of people.
No, it doesn't. That's why I just see, I mean, specifically, I mean, even, I mean, gymnasts and dancers, like that's great, but sometimes they don't always have that, like that, just that confidence and that demeanor on stage. But like girls with pageant backgrounds, oh my God, I just see them. I mean, if they're into fitness and they have a good muscular base, like I see those types of girls thriving just because I feel like pageant ladies naturally just have this like poise and this confidence within themselves on stage.
I mean, confidence comes with repetitions. And if you've done
Right.
pageants your whole life, you've probably done stage walks dozens or if not more times. You know, I don't know how that works. But anytime, you know, you ask somebody who has really great stage presence, like, man, what's your background? You just know it's coming back to something.
Mhm.
Um, of just being comfortable in front of people and being yourself. So you can create it to a degree. You know, I think I always think back of Daraja. Um, she created it because she grew up playing tennis, not pageants. If anything, she was shy and you know, not I won't say shy, but like, you know, wasn't like in that pageant space. But when she would get on stage, I would always be like, oh my Lord, like where does that person come from? But she put hours and hours and became a student of the sport. And so when she hit the stage, she was confident, not because she was had done thousands of show or you know repetitions in pageants, but because she had done thousands of repetitions in front of a camera and knew what she was doing and performing. Um, so it can be obviously improved. So I don't want to scare people off that are like, well, I didn't do pageants, but you know, I think this is going to be much more. Whereas I think currently, when we go to a show and you know, the three of us, four of us sit down and we watch, we don't start judging the show until all the girls are lined up, and then we can start picking them apart. Oh, so and so's legs look good. Ooh, someone's waist looks good. Ah, ooh, yeah, you know, the Olympia. I think a lot of us when they face the back that first call out, we were like, oop,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
the real telltale is when you see
yeah,
girls next to each other, right? Like that,
Yeah.
if there is one thing I try to always tell like my athletes would like when they go to shows or when maybe they're asking me like, hey, why did so and so, why do you think she won over, you know, the other person? I'm like, well, look at that person next to the other girls. Like that's the biggest differentiator is being able to see girls compared next to each other, not just, you know, when they're standing on their own. And that's why like even when you look at people on Instagram, right? Like their progress pictures, that's why that can be such a slippery slope too, because they may look great on their own, but their weaknesses are very much so exposed when they're standing next to others.
I think you guys tell me if you agree with this, because this is a conversation I have with a lot of my athletes, especially earlier on in their competitive careers, and a lot of girls that are going in their first or second shows. Obviously, not every girl falls into this category, but this is what I've seen over the years. Most girls fall into one or two categories. They either grew up being athletic, playing a bunch of sports, loving training. They typically put on muscle a little bit easier, may not overall have the best shape on things, but sometimes they do. But they love training, they love all that stuff. But they're not the most ladylike in heels. They're not the best walking in heels. They don't like the makeup quite as much, the hair, the stage presence. And then you have the other side, which are girls that necessarily didn't grow up working out quite as much or playing sports, more into like pageant or dance, and then they want to get into it. They don't have quite the muscle that these other girls have or need to be in the bikini division, but their stage presence, everything like that, is out of this world. Like one of my clients that I worked with earlier, or that I work with still now, but she did her first show this year at that Heart of Texas, Paul, the one I showed you. You know,
yeah.
she's on the thinner side of things. Beautiful girl. She rocked that stage like she had competed 100 times. A girl like that is made for a division like this. And a lot of girls fall into one of those two categories. And if you can think about yourself naturally in one of those two categories, I think you're going to kind of know where you fit in, at least longer term here. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. And it like, you know, we specifically talked about a couple of your athletes that have hit the stage the last year and maybe even the last 2 years and thought like the feedback was very clear. Like you look as good as you can look for this division,
Yeah.
but you need more muscle to do bikini. Whereas they're probably ready to go for this fit model category because they're stunning, the shape, balance. But, you know, especially taller athletes,
Yeah.
they
This
need
would be
more
big for
muscle.
taller girls. Good grief.
And
Yeah.
this is going to be something that's advantageous for taller girls. If you look back at like someone like Janet Leug, who, um, depending on how well you know the history of the sport, Janet Leug turned pro, and I believe her next year was second at Olympia. She won the overall at nationals and then got second at the Olympia her first year competing. And taller. I mean, she's very tall, 5'8" probably. Obviously, great lines and great shape. But I because of this, division, I wanted to go back and look at some of these pictures, and I went back and looked at her. I mean, she had a good amount of muscle, very defined midsection, but it's nothing like what we're seeing today. Nothing like it. And I think that's so, like, Steven, one of our coaches who coaches a lot of bikini, he's had a lot of competitors turn pro. He's done very well over the years. He has not enjoyed the transition into most of the girls that are wanting to get their pro card, or he has not enjoyed pushing the narrative of PEDs, because you have to be honest with athletes in this day and age. You can't tell a girl, yeah, you can turn pro naturally, if she can't. Like, you got to be honest with them. And so we have those conversations. He actually said something on the podcast the other day that he did about on this topic, where he said, this is not a new division. Everyone's complaining about a new division. This is the same division. They just turned it back 10 years.
I agree to a certain extent with that, but it was still the physique mainly back then too. Now they're purposely saying they're judging the hair, the stage presence, the look of the athlete, things like that. So I do
I'll
think
be
it's a
honest.
little bit different.
I think, yeah, the physique was obviously, it's a bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
They're never going to be able to just reward someone who's gorgeous but 20 pounds
It's got to be
overweight.
everything. Yeah.
But I think more so back then, I used to say pro bikini was a pretty face and great glutes.
True.
Like, that's gone away. Now it's a
It
physique
has.
competition 100%. So yeah, I'm very interested to see. So let's talk a little bit about, like, obviously we're calling this episode "The Fit Model is going to kill bikini," or "Bikini's dead," or just something to grab your attention, which we not necessarily think that's the case. But I think right off the bat, it's going to kill bikini right away, because have they announced that they're going to have it at national shows this year?
I haven't heard anything.
I
Yep.
don't think, I know they just announced the national show schedule, but I don't know if they've announced
So
Fit
we
Model.
reached out to the Arnold. They're not having Fit Model at the Arnold.
Mm.
So the first show of the year, and this actually has a history, the LA Fit Expo, right? That is a muscle contest show, very tiny competition, right? Did Sam win that one last year? My client,
Yes,
Sam, she won that one last year. But it's, you're going to get like 20, 30 competitors per division, if that, right? It's a small show. However, that was a little bit different in 2020, 2019, when they introduced a new division called Wellness. 2019, I was at the LA Fit Expo, and I went to watch the show. I think I had a couple girls competing, and they were introducing Wellness. And I thought, oh, the bikini division had like 15, 20 girls total, across all, masters, open, novice, right? Wellness comes out and there's like 50 girls. And I'm like, what is happening? I didn't realize that because this was the first competition in the United States, all the girls from Brazil came. So if you look up who won the overall at the first ever NPC wellness show,
Angela Borges.
Isa Perenes,
Oh.
who also went on to win the Arnold and this year won the Olympia. Now, she was a little bit behind Angela and what was the young lady that had the Olympia title for the last 3-4 years?
Franciella.
Francielle. She was a little bit behind them in her career, but she's obviously caught up to them as far as, fitting the criteria. But like, I remember watching like the bikini competitors. I was like, oh, they look pretty good. And then these wellness girls came out. I was like, what? It was all the wellness pros from Brazil. And so I'm curious what's going to happen with this division. Like, is it going to kill bikini at these early shows? Like, because he blatantly said you cannot cross over.
I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, I do feel
I
like
think
we're going to
that's-
see a lot of, I think we're going to see some big numbers in this division right off the get-go, just because I feel like there's a lot of people in this kind of limbo phase of like, okay, I think I maybe want to stick with bikini, but like, I don't know, let me try out fit model, right? And also like I was just looking back to researching like some of the numbers at I just looked up like MPC nationals in 2015 for bikini. And I mean, if you go back and you look at how many girls are in those classes, I mean, it's a lot more than it once was, right? So we're talking like the bikini circa 2015, which is essentially going to be what fit model is. There were like, I think I was just looking like 30 girls in each open class at the national show, right? Like in some
Nope,
classes even.
nope, you're wrong. Here's where
No?
you're wrong, Lexi, because 2015, they were still only doing 6 classes. The classes were averaging 40 to 50. So
Okay. So
so this is where I excel because I did all this research for you, Lexi. 2015, bikini had 259 competitors in 6 classes. That's more than 40 per class.
still wow. That's I mean, that's still a lot, even with
Right.
less classes, that's still a lot.
That's massive. Well, yeah, compared to this year, which had 170 in 8 classes. So you're barely averaging 20 a class. You're averaging 21 a class, 22 versus 42 per class.
Here's also why I think it's going to end up really hurting the bikini division is, and I wish they would come out and say why they are not allowing crossovers. I don't know the reason, because you can get, if it's not a money thing, because they can buy a cheap bikini and do it and cross over. I don't know what the
Mm,
reason would be for not allowing that. You can do it in any other division.
they may, a couple things. It could be because the judges are going to be effed if they have a girl win in bikini and in
One
fit
of
model,
both.
and they're essentially going to be the same at the NPC starting levels. They're going to be
Yeah.
the same girl. So they don't want the same girl winning both.
Well, they shouldn't be able to. It should be very different criteria.
But
But
you
in
and I
some
have
of
been
these
to
shows,
shows where
yeah.
the bikini girls are more muscular than the figure girls, right?
Hmm.
Bikini killed the figure division. So I thought it was initially, this is going to keep the costs down because girls aren't going to feel pressured to do both bikini. They're not going to want to spend, have to spend $800 on a suit. It's a great question, and it's a great question to ask Tyler bluntly if when I see him, maybe at the Arnold if I get him alone, but just be like, hey, like what was the reason for not allowing crossovers? Because the promoters are like itching because they get for one competitor they can get 4 or 5 times more money.
I think I know what the reason is, and I just got, well, this is my opinion. At least we talked a little earlier about this. I think at least in regional shows, the vast majority of girls would currently fit the fit model division better than they would a high level national bikini standard.
Oh, 100%.
And if you go to a regional show and you cross over to both, if you are a pretty decent bikini competitor, but not all the way national level good yet, you're probably going to be placing very high or winning that fit model division and probably going to win bikini too. Most girls are not conditioned enough to be a national level competitor. Most girls do
No.
not have enough muscle to be a national level competitor. Most do not. And a lot of these girls I talk to think like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's not as much muscle. I'm like, to be blatantly honest, like you could probably use a little more muscle for this division. Like if you think you have more
Well,
muscle than
yeah,
Ashley Cole did in 2015, you
you can
don't.
have more muscle and be a little bit less conditioned.
Yeah.
Then that's where this is going to be. Because most of the time when we're bringing our athletes in ultra conditioned, it's because it gives the illusion of having more muscle.
Mhm.
If you have a ton of muscle, you don't need to diet down quite as lean to show it off. So let's talk numbers because we're talking about some pretty big topics here, right? Lexi, you said 2015, 259. And I liked looking at the year. Like in
Mhm.
2015, who won the overall at nationals? Janet Leuk. And there was 259 girls there. The next year, 2016, Janet is second at the Olympia, right? So in 2017, there was 284 in bikini alone. Now that's the first year they moved to 8 classes. I'll toot my own horn. That's also the year I had 2 girls splitting middle in the overall, Cass and Lauren Dannemiller. Lauren Dannemiller taking it. So what happened with figure during that same time? Because this is what I think these two divisions parallel. It's a little bit different because figure had different posing. But if you look at who was more popular in 2011, 2012, the bikini champion or the figure champion, it was not close. Aaron Stern was the biggest name in women's competition at that time. She was. I mean, that like you knew Erin Stern. I don't think a lot of people remember who was winning the bikini division before Ashley Kaltwasser came along, right? Natalia Mello, those kind of competitors, great physiques, Sonia Gonzalez, you know, they weren't in the sport as long, but you know, Erin was like back and forth battling with what was her name?
I
The
should know
blonde,
that.
huh? The blonde figure
I
girl,
should know that.
Ani Rambod. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, so Erin was the biggest name in the sport. So, and check this out. In 2012, figure had 199 at nationals. Bikini had 189. So that was the last year there was more figure. But I think that was also probably marking the years when the figure girls started juicing up a little bit more. They started getting the jaw lines. They started getting the capped delts. They started getting a little more striations in the quads. They started having a little bit deeper voices, right? And this is natural in a sport like bodybuilding. You push your body to the next level, and I think that's up to the coach and the individual to decide. And I'm not judging that. I'm just talking about purely the numbers of the division. When did they change? 2012, very interesting. You had more. Fast forward just 3 years to 2015, you had 157 in figure, 259 in bikini. So I'm guessing a decent amount of those girls switched to bikini, or people were just not interested in doing the figure, and the bikini division was drawing more people in for females to compete. This year, 2024, how many figure? I'm going to ask you guys before I tell you.
Ooh, in nationals.
Figure nationals. Now remember, they still give out 2 pro cards per class.
Let me think.
60.
Well, how many were in bikini this year? Do you know?
171.
Okay, I'm gonna say
Smallest national show outside of a non-COVID year ever.
I'm gonna
60.
say
That's my guess.
70.
65. You guys nailed it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
about a third of bikini.
This is
So,
literally everything you're saying is just to me like screams history is gonna like repeat itself. And
I don't think it's unless they change what the bikini girls are looking like that are winning pro shows, because that's what everyone sees.
well, and
And
I heard something kind of interesting the other day too that like put it into perspective a little bit better for me, and this may help some of the listeners. But everybody's talked about how bikini's gotten bigger over the years, which like clearly yes it has when you look at these competitors, but it also like in hindsight kind of makes sense because naturally, I mean, let's take somebody like Ashley Kay, right? Like when you religiously just live this lifestyle year after year, like what's going to happen? You're naturally going to put on density, you're going to put on size, right? Unless you stop training or or you're not training as hard. So it's like as these athletes have continued to live the lifestyle and put on muscle and put on size, I mean, it's not that I feel like it's not that the judges have been saying they want to reward more. It's just these same athletes are just adding a little bit more size year after year after year.
Well,
So
and I agree, Lexi, and I also don't think they want to penalize. So if you've got a girl at the top of the sport and she trains again for another year and comes back and has a little bit more muscle, you don't necessarily want to penalize her and be like, oh, you were the champion, now you're not anymore, or you were a top 5 and now you're. So I get that there's a gentle gradual, but I just felt the last couple years
too
specifically,
much.
it's sped up.
Too
The
much.
amount of drugs being pushed on women sped up dramatically.
And also too, here's an interesting going back to the Aaron thing. It was Nicole Wilkins was the one she was
Nicole
going
Wilkins,
against.
100%.
And here's the funny thing about all that too. So talking about Aaron Stern, what division did she end up competing
Yay,
in at
Evan.
the end?
Good job,
Bikini.
buddy. What's that?
Is it, and then she ended up transitioning to bikini anyways.
Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she went to the Olympia in bikini.
Yep. Twice. Mhm.
Now, she did have to downsize a little bit,
Yes.
but Aaron was another super gifted athlete. If I recall, she also won the overall at nationals and was in the top couple at the Olympia her first year, like right to the top.
Yeah, I mean, she's one of the most genetically gifted and hardest working.
Yeah, I mean,
And
well, I
smartest,
mean,
like,
that's
incredibly
that's what
talented.
made her. She also was quite open about, at the time she trained differently. She was doing a lot of track workouts. She was a natural athlete. She
She's
was
an
a
athlete.
qualified like freaking high jumper or something. So like if you've never met Erin in person, the first thing you think that I was like shocked was like, wow, she is large. Like she is tall and like because it doesn't come across in pictures when an athlete is very balanced. They just look like she is 5'8", 5'7", and just very dense. I don't even know what she weighed on stage as a figure pro. Do you know? Do you know, Evan?
About 127.
You want to be blown away? Like that's kind of what bikini pros are weighing on stage
Well,
now.
that's what she weighed on stage is Bikini Pro too, around that weight.
Oh, really? She just
Mhm.
kind of reshaped, brought her back down, and brought her glutes
Yeah,
up.
she brought her upper body down and added it all to her glutes. Yep.
Interesting. I would have guessed
Stage
she
weight
was
was
in the
very
100.
similar. And she was honestly probably a little bit leaner when she was bikini too,
You're right. She was
back
the
in the day.
figure criteria. I mean, there's another. The figure criteria got
Way harder.
way harder, right?
And I know her that's the division. Like her physique was closer to what the bikini standard was at that time than it was what figure was at that time. That's
Yeah,
one of the reasons I believe she wanted to change divisions. I don't want to speak for
yeah.
her, but
Well, and I mean, maybe at that time, that's why she was the most popular female athlete on the planet in the bodybuilding world. I don't, and I'm not trying to discount anybody that was competing in that time in women's bodybuilding. I just, everything was Aaron Stern back then. She was on Oxygen magazine. She was on the bodybuilding.com message boards. Like it was, you know, a lot of discussion about her. I still remember the first time I ever saw her compete in Florida at a show called the Valenti Cup. I was like, oh my God, it's Aaron Stern. It's Aaron Stern. You know, and you know, we became friends over the years because she doesn't live too far from me. But like, it was a big deal. And um, you know, I love Sid Gillen. Sid represents the figure division better than anyone has historically. But there was a transition there where when Sid was coming up, and there was 3 or 4 top 4 figure girls that no one could touch. No one. Sid kind of ended up running away with it, but there was a year where they were kind of going back and forth, these 4 competitors. You know, they basically kicked Nicole Wilkins out and they started taking over. A couple of them retired and Sid just ran with it. But, you know, it's going to be very interesting what happens with figure now because the young lady that was second at the Olympia, nothing like Sid. I mean,
nothing.
way more muscular.
Mhm.
Way almost.
So
It's a tough thing, and I go back when we go back to the bikini side of things and watching the breakdowns of a bunch of these shows, where Tyler goes over it, and especially for the Olympia breakdown last year, where he's talking about he's like these girls need to add no more muscle, no more, no more, and he kept emphasizing that no more. But then when you get to a lot of these other shows, right, especially overseas shows, they reward more and more and more and more and more. And I know you can only judge what's in front of you. And that's the difficult part about this sport with it. But
Yeah.
it's everything evolves, right? Everything evolves. Everything evolves. And I think changing and naming this the fit model division, some people said classic bikini. I understand that thought for it, but it is way easier just to explain a new division fit model than classic bikini. Like it's
yeah,
just easier and cleaner.
I like the name. It just sounds cool. But at the same time, I think they want to disassociate with bikini.
Yep.
Um, I mean, even the word bikini, I think sometimes people will be like, bikini? You coach bikini? Like that's a thing. Like, whereas like fit model has a little more clear description of what it
Yeah.
is. Um, you know, my favorite.
Bikinis a lot. And they need to make sure this time too, because it was a slow evolution with this, right? It was a slow evolution. Because I remember like going back to the Erin thing when she first transitioned to bikini, her worry was like these girls don't have any muscle or anything like that. Within like 2 years of her saying that, she was like, oh no, now I like the division. But then it even outgrew from that,
Yeah.
right? It's like death by 1,000 cuts. And that's what happens with divisions. They start running away with things.
Well, I mean, Lexi, you talked numbers, so let's just talk raw numbers. Let's talk about 2017 was the peak of the bikini division. 2017, you know, you can look back at your Olympia champions, your Olympia top fives. They're going to be your Janet Leyugs. They're going to be your Courtney Kings, tall, shape, you know, Angelica Teixeira was just getting started. She doesn't look, you looked a little different back then. You know, she's a little more muscular now. So like those physiques, I think were very in vogue in the sport. And we had 1,300 total competitors across all the national shows in the open bikini category. 1,300. This year, 740 across all national shows, all open divisions. The most drastic change, you know, from a high of 276, nationals is down to 170. And then North Americans from a high of 275 down to 128 this year. So like some of these shows, I mean, and the most shocking was just being at Junior USA's last year, and there was 52 in bikini. 52 in 8 classes. There was a class with 5 girls.
I remember that. Yeah. And also remember, I mean, I know that or the Arnold amateur is a little bit different, but like remember there were only 2 girls in one class?
Yeah, I think it was class A.
No, I think it was class C.
See? Okay, yeah.
Which is weird because normally class C is like the biggest, but that was
Yeah.
I remember being so shocked by that. It's like, whoa.
So I tracked this number too, just because I was curious. So I went back and tracked all the Arnolds. So in 2019, the Arnold had, no, 2000, yeah, 168 competitors. Last year, 25. Now, the Arnold is different. It's not technically a national show. And it was one of the only ways for international competitors to get a pro card. That is no longer the case. The NPC worldwide is everywhere. I don't even know if you get anybody internationally coming to the Arnold anymore. There was one girl from Japan last year. She won her class. I remember. Nice girl. But like, it's not what so I'm not even tracking that, but that's still shocking.
I think part of it too is the numbers drop is saying now they require the national qualification for the Arnold.
That's
when they
true.
Used to
It used to
not.
just be open. You're right. That is
Because I have 2 girls right now that would roll into that show, but they haven't competed in a few years and they need to get a qualification. And I don't want to fly to California to do it. So
yeah,
there's
there's only a couple options of even.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's going to cut down on options for a lot of people for that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not discussing the Arnold, because but national shows have always had the same rules.
Yep.
2017, I remember very specifically, you had to be top 2 to go to nationals, and they had 276 girls in bikini at one show. That is just, at the time I didn't know it. I was like, wow, that's a pretty big show. I didn't know I was at the biggest, show in history for bikini.
Yeah. Well, I'm also curious, Paul, you can probably speak more to this. I know this isn't like the sole reason for the numbers, but I do think it probably has a little bit to do with it. Haven't the entry fees for some of these shows like drastically gone up within the past like 10
I
years?
don't think they've gone up that much, because they were always quite a bit higher than a regional show. They were always 250 to 350. They were always up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably
Evan actually did nationals. You remember what you paid to enter nationals?
Ooh, I think it was 350 or 400. It was more
That was like
considerably.
2019, right? When did you do it? 2018.
I did it. How many times did I nationals? I did nationals 3 years.
Okay.
And I don't remember specifically what it was. I think it was 400, and most shows I think were 350.
Yeah, so Lexi, that's now I will say this, the economy being what it is, obviously we've discussed that the cost of competing has increased while incomes and
hotels.
inflation have affected that. But,
well,
And also too, the venues these promoters hold these events at, people don't understand these venues have gone up a lot in price too. So it's not just the hotel rooms, like everyone is feeling this, because I've had people reach out to me and saying, well, why are they doing this division? I was like, well, honestly, the sport needs more money into it as well to keep it going and progressing forward, because the venues cost more, hotels cost more. And the only way you can supplement that is with more and more people too. And the numbers are so much lower.
something else I'm very curious to see, and of course only time is going to tell, but I'm curious to see like how many masters do fit model, just because generally I feel like we see a lot of masters who are competing in bikini, they do have a little bit more of that like muscular density, right? And they do sometimes get a little bit like harder or grainy, and which is not necessarily what they're going to want to see in fit models. So I'm curious to see if there's a lot of masters in the new fit model division.
I've had a lot of my girls immediately bring it up, and my answer is always the same. Like, let's just see how these are unfolding before we start to like stress about that. Like I said, I don't know. Have they announced? I would assume they're going to have Fit Model at nationals because
Oh, I would assume,
I
but
would assume next year they're going to start with the pro shows, or maybe even right after the Olympia announce the first pro show. So I I got to imagine it's going to be at Junior USA's, but then you're going to have, if you had 52 bikini girls last year at Junior USA's, what are you going to have, 25 and 25 in Fit Model?
right.
Or I just don't know. Now I will say this. I looked at the national schedule and the first thing that stood out to me is that they pushed Junior USA's back 2 more weeks.
Oh, did they?
Okay,
It's the last weekend of May.
oh yeah, okay. I'm pulling it up right now. I do see that.
So it's
That
2 weeks
helped.
before. So is it still 2 weeks before Junior Nats? Or it was a month before Junior Nats. Now it's 2 weeks
2020,
before Junior Nats.
6/20, so 3 weeks before
3
Junior
weeks, okay.
Nats. Maybe they pushed Junior Nats back.
They pushed it.
Junior
They pushed
Nats
it
is,
back a week.
and then Universe is the same. It's 4th of July weekend.
Mhm.
It's actually on the 4th of July this year.
Because it
Well,
used to be a month between Junior Nats and Universe.
What's up, Lexi? What'd you
Oh,
find?
no, 2
well,
weeks.
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, like on the 2025 national contest date schedule, it doesn't say fit model. It says like fitness, figure, bikini, men's and women's physique, classic physique, and wellness. There's
And it's not on there, then they're not doing it. So maybe they're not going to be giving out pro cards this year. Maybe they're just going to have a full year of NPC.
but that's interesting because I do
Because you know
recall
what else? You have to qualify, right? You can't just do a national show. So they got to have a bunch of people placing top two. That's going to take a while to collectively.
that's just interesting though, because I do recall that they said you could get your pro card this year. They weren't going to start the pro shows though until next year.
Right.
But
They said they didn't even guarantee they're going to start the pro shows till next year, though. They said they could start them next year.
Well,
okay.
I think the pro division,
I think they did. I could be wrong.
if they did a
Actually,
pro show, that would be smart, I think, because you're going to have a lot of girls come out, do that already have pro cards. And honestly, what's going to change the whole perception of the sport is showing pros. Because I think the reason that the bikini division is shrinking is because people look at the pros and they go, I don't want that. I mean, I've literally had this conversation with dozens and dozens of competitors. I do not want to look like XYZ person. Okay. You won't. That's not. Have you ever been to an NPC show? No, I haven't. Okay, we'll go and let's watch one. And they go, oh my gosh, that's way different. I go, yeah. So I think having some pros out there, putting a poster child up for the division is going to, have people excited. Oh man, I really love the way Janet Liu looks. I love the way Courtney King looks. I love the way Angelica looks. That's what the lens that people see the sport through. It was the same thing with me when the magazines, when I was a kid. I thought my first bodybuilding show I went to, everyone was going to look like Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman.
That's true, Paul. Very smart. But that is
It's-
most people get into the sport because they want to look like whoever's at the top, right? Like they do.
That's why figure was huge. No one looked at Erin Stern and went, I don't want to look like that. She was gorgeous, had great muscle, great balance, great shape. Was she a phenom? Yes, but she wasn't masculinized to a point where she was on the cover of the most popular women's magazine. I don't know how many times a year, Oxygen. It was
Like
always
she was
her.
on the cover like 12, 14 times or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like every time I would go through the stand, I would see it. I remember the first time I saw her at the Arnold, she was standing in front of like a giant, she was at the Oxygen booth. Obviously, print media is kind of gone now, but that was one of the biggest honors in the sport, was being on a magazine cover, and she owned it. They probably were just like, all right, we just used her. When can we use her again? I bet you they sold her.
And that was a female-based magazine, and she was like the cover for that for normal, regular females who just like to go to the gym.
Right.
Which is what they're trying to do with this division here.
Right. This is going to be the cover model division. Like this is going to be the division for women that fit that criteria, that they can put on a suit, get on a magazine cover, and the general public will go, wow.
Yep. And not think it's too much, not think it's too much muscle, not think it's masculine looking, not think it's be like, I would love to look like that.
Right. Not, yeah, no,
Not,
none of
wow,
the
that's
hard lines,
impressive.
hard edges, or even like, if you've gotten so masculine and so gnarly that you have to put face fillers in just to look female still, that's probably not going to play well with this division.
Right. You know what's very interesting too is so I like obviously it's very person dependent, but I was very curious a couple weeks ago. I want to say it was like 2 3 weeks ago. I had a picture of Ashley Cotwasser in 2020, or not 2020, 2015, the pictures that they've been using to model like the fit model division, and I put those next to Laura Lee and her win this year at the Olympia. And I was just really curious. I wanted to just get some like gen pop opinions, right? Some from some family members who are not bodybuilders. And I specifically, like, I showed my mom and I was like, Mom, just out of curiosity, like, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm not gonna like be offended or anything. Like, which look do you like better as a female? Do you like the Ashley Kaltwasser 2015 look or the Laura Lee Olympia look? And she was like, I like the Ashley look. So I feel like a lot of like Gen Pop does like that look a lot better. Not to say that there's anything wrong with like how Laura Lee looks. Like, I love that look, but it was just interesting to get some opinions from some people who are outside of the world of bodybuilding, and furthermore like female opinions too.
No, it's super important. And Tyler put it best when he said most people look at the top level of the sport and say, I don't want to look like that, right? Or that's not something that's attractive to me, or it's going to take way too long for me to get there with that. And again, there's a difference between saying I want to look like someone and then having and saying, wow, that's really impressive, right? Like most girls will look at these bikini girls at the top and say, wow, it's really impressive. But no, I don't necessarily want to look like that. I can look at it for myself. Not that I could ever look like a top level open bodybuilder because I understand the sport. And no, I do not have the genetics or the ability to do that. But also, I would not want to look like that either. It's for me
Right.
personally, it's too much. But I look at it like, wow, it's wildly impressive,
Mhm.
right? And that's the way I think a lot of people can look at things. And if you want to grow a sport, you need more eyeballs on it. You need more sponsors. You need more money. You need all of these things. If you want to make it more mainstream, bring in something that attracts the mainstream. I think this is super, super duper smart.
I think so too. And I know that there were some people at the beginning that were like complaining, oh, they're just doing this, to make more money. But it's also like, well, the NPC FBB, it is a business, right? Like, I know I didn't understand why people were complaining about that. Because if anything, it's going to help everybody in this sport. Like you said, Evan, it's going to bring in more eyes. It's going to bring in more money. Yes. But like as a business, that's not a bad thing, right? It's going to make the experience for
No,
athletes better. It's going to make the shows better. It's just going to make everything better. So there's I mean, I don't feel like there's nothing wrong with a business trying to bring
Honestly, I think someone that says a statement like that, they're just trying to bring in more money. They probably never run a business.
right.
Or
Exactly.
what like it's a bad thing to bring in more money. And this is a conversation I had with a few guys on Instagram that messaged me and were like, well, they had a problem with them. Like, it doesn't affect your division, man. You get to still do what you do. And here's the thing. It's the people who are the freaks at the top are still going to bring in all the eyeballs and all the attention and everything else like that. All it's going to do is allow more people to see you do your thing. So why is it a problem?
there's a reason why you get to go to the Olympia and be at an expo and be on a stage in, the Chris Angel Mind Freak Theater. It's because they built a business that's successful and they put money
Yes.
back into the sport. They could keep all the money and keep all the shows in high schools like, the other organizations do. Like there's a reason why the NPC and the IFBB are the best bodybuilding organization on the globe, and it's not close. There isn't like, ooh, we could do this other organization. No, it's not close. It's because they've been innovative. Watch what happens in the next year or two, how every other organization introduces fit model, just like they introduced men's physique and classic physique and wellness as soon as the NPC did it. Like
Yep.
they are the leader. And anytime you have, they don't release their numbers for NPC like cards. Like when you and me and Lexi go do a show, we go to the NPC website, we get our card for that year. That's where they make the majority of their money. So I don't know if in 2017 they had 50,000 people get a card and this year they had 25,000. I don't know that. But just looking at these nationals numbers, they're at about 50% for one division, their most popular division in the last 7 years. So are they just going to go, cool, let's just drop down lower? If they only have 600 something athletes cross the national stage next year in bikini, that's a travesty. Like all those women are going somewhere else to compete.
I feel like
Prices are going up, prize money's going up. Everyone's so excited because prize money going up for all these pro shows and everything like that,
Yeah.
which is great. But you cannot have numbers going down and prize money going up. If you do that, a business will fail.
Well,
right.
that's why we have, like, I think all of us in Florida are very sad that Joe Piscula pulled all his pro shows because, the Clash, which was one of the premier bikini titles, Miss Clash World, like Issa won that title, Lauren Dannemiller won that title. Um, it's held prestige because it's like the first big pro show of the year.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's done. And you know why? Because last year they had 29 competitors show up for open bikini with Sandy Williamson as the head judge. 29
I
athletes.
remember
And,
that.
and also the girls that won those shows, like Joe would put up, girls that win those shows normally go to win national shows. A
Yeah.
lot of them. There's
Yep.
so many pro card winners that come out of that show.
Oh, yeah.
Those shows were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I remember being so baffled by those numbers for the first couple of class shows of the year. And, I feel like as an athlete, like if you want to see the sport grow, if you want to see the industry doing well, I think even like when you're not in prep, when you're not competing, like go to these shows if you can go locally, support the promoter, buy a ticket,
100%.
go and, post about these shows. Like, I think there's a lot to be said for if you want to see these shows grow and you want to see the sport move in a positive way, like you need to support it yourself, even if that means going to a show and not actually competing in it, but just going and attending and or even volunteering, right? Sometimes these shows are looking for volunteers for trophy girls or whatnot, but I think being a part of it, showing your support, because putting on a show, I know you've talked about it before, Paul, like it's hard work, because I know you used to promote one, like it's a
Mhm.
lot of work and sometimes not a ton of returns, especially with what the numbers end up being.
You come out of pocket, a $10,000 minimum right now to promote a show, and then you wait for people to sign up. The good promoters that have been around for 20, 30 years, your Tim Gardners, they have enough experience and they have enough sponsors. They know, okay, they're going to be fine. But I promise you, these shows, unless the numbers, so the reason I bring up the Clash show is because with 29 total bikini competitors across, all divisions, and in 20 what year was that, 2021, they had 76. So a 67% drop off in a number of athletes. That revenue's gone. But when you have a pro division, a lot of people think like, oh, look, there's like 40 bikini pros at this show. That's great, right? The promoter makes $0 off of that because people don't travel with the pros. Pros don't live in Orlando. They travel from all over the world to come compete on that show. Open bikini does not pay an entry fee. They get nothing. They end up paying out. They lose money on pro bikini. Now they hope they make it up because of the cachet of like, hey, I have a show with pro athletes. How many bikini, NPC girls are like, oh, I'm doing the same show as Ashley Kaltwasser. Cool. I want to be there. I want to meet Ashley. But, you know, I just think the numbers weren't making sense, and it'll be curious to see how many shows survive and what happens at this first, like what is the first show to have fit model?
I know. I
Are they
mean,
having it at LA Fit Expo? I haven't looked on there to see if you can register for it.
I would assume, but that's a
I
great.
I I think they are.
I'm sure I could just look
I
it
mean,
up.
they had wellness that first year, and I don't think all of Brazil's going to show up like they did for wellness. I think they promoted that a lot heavier because wellness already was very established
It
with
was
other
huge, and
organizations.
the IFBB Elite Pro was huge, and that's where Angela Borges came from. It was huge over there already.
Yeah,
Because I
and
remember
they
with the
were
Arnold Classic South Africa, and that division, that wellness division there, was massive. I also know the Tubos Pros, they came out and made a post saying that fit model will be at every one of their shows, but that's overseas, obviously.
Yeah, so if you go to the LA Fit Expo show, I think it's January 25th timeframe, then it's going to be very interesting because if they have it there, is it going to be like 15 in bikini and 15 in fit model, or is it going to be nobody in fit model because it's too new? Like, you know, the no crossing over.
I don't know. I'm trying to find it on their website right now to see if they are going to have fit model.
Go to muscle contest.
It
Let's
says that the fit model division will be offered at all muscle contest international events. It says that.
Well, no, but I'm saying right now, if you go to register for the show, so if you go to the show, can you click on Fit Model to register? Because you can obviously register for bikini,
That's what I'm
figure. So I'm
trying
gonna
to
let.
find. Okay, wait, now we're on muscle contest, so let's see. Okay, classes. So it looks like, yeah, there's going to be fit model. It says women's fit model. So,
I
and
mean, I'm
it,
very
Cool.
excited
Good.
about coaching this division. I'm probably gonna go. I'm probably gonna go to that. I haven't been to the Fit Expo since COVID, since 2020.
well, that'll be, so that's actually, I do know this off the top of my head. The same weekend that the Fit Expo is happening is the same weekend that they're having the MPC Women's Workshop in Orlando that Sandy's going to be at. So like that's where I'll be. But it looks like, so yeah, they're going to have women's fit model at the Fit Expo. And it looks like they have True Novice A, True Novice B, Masters over 50, Masters over 45, Masters over 35,
Jeez.
Junior, Novice A, B, Hero, and then they have 4 open classes.
So
That's
here's
so many
where,
divisions for a new division.
well,
Like,
yeah, and here's where it's a
Jesus.
little bit strange. Everyone's a true novice. They should not offer that.
Yeah,
That
Just my
shouldn't be.
opinion.
I don't understand how
They should
that's.
just offer open at the first show because they're novice. The definition of novice and true novice is just,
You've never competed in.
never competed or you've never won. No one's ever competed and no one's ever won. So are we going to have somebody go do true novice, novice, masters, and open at their first show?
Everyone can do all of them.
yeah, I don't know. That seems very weird that they have that on their website right now. It almost makes me wonder, like, is that an error? Because that's such a good point. Everybody's a true
Yeah.
novice. So
It maybe just be a formatting thing with their website and how they register and all that stuff. Maybe. I don't know.
I'm just curious though too, because it's like this show notoriously it is in January. I feel like even for like NPC across all divisions, it's generally smaller just because it's kind of at a weird time of year. So it makes me wonder. And also, like, I don't know if a lot of girls are going to want to be that first group to come out for Fit Model, right? Because I think a lot of people are kind of sitting back temporarily and seeing the next, couple of shows that come out to see what the division looks like first before really making a decision of if they want to do it or not. So it's kind of like, who's going to be the, the brave one to come out and just do it,
And here's a question: how many divisions is it going to be? Like, how many height classes are going to be? Is it going to be 2 height classes? Is it going to be 3 height classes?
Well,
4?
they have 4 for open. So they
4
have
for open.
4 for open for fit model, and then they have all the masters, and then it looks like they only have 2 for each true novice and novice classes. So that's a little
And look, this is just me here. I think the first year it should be open, and if they want to do masters, it's fine. It should be
like the
open
Arnold. They should have
and
a
like
masters
2,
over 35 for
and
everybody, and then
and
open.
that's it. Two classes and then out. Like, this is too. They're already breaking it down way too much on a new division, which is an issue we already have with
Well,
the other
and I'll tell
divisions.
you because I just looked it up because Samantha, my client that turned pro at the Arnold, that was where we went for her to qualify was the LA Fit
Mhm.
Expo. She won the overall. There was 15 total bikini competitors. So what would be very interesting is if there's
With
15
one
total
girl
bikini
class.
competitors this year, but there's like 30 in the fit model. Like because fit model girls are going to show up softer. They're going to show up not, you know, they're going to their suit doesn't have to be so customized.
right.
I mean,
I'm interested to see how when the numbers will be there for fit model. I'm just interested to see when that happens.
especially the LA Fit Expo because I feel like this is one of those divisions like some people are going to show up not even prepped. They're going to be like, I
You
look pretty
think?
good in the gym. Let me just go see.
You think that's going to be a thing?
Listen, there's girls in the bikini division that I go, did you prep? So I think this division is gonna remind me of when bikini first got introduced in like 2009, 2010, and I would go to shows, and the girls were just on the stage in off the rack suits, not hitting poses. They were just standing on stage. And if you got it, you got it. Every now and then you look up there and be like, damn, that girl's banging, like, woo, and she would win. There wasn't a super, this is going to be more well defined because they have the history of the bikini division to kind of guide them. But I think it's called fit model. I really think girls are just going to be like, let me just go see what this is about. Girls stay in shape, dude. They're not like me and you, Evan. They don't
No,
get.
I know.
Well, I will definitely I'll talk to you about this, Paul, afterwards, but like when I go to the women's workshop in Orlando, I'm anticipating like
Yeah.
hopefully learning a lot more about and just getting some clarifications.
I
And
don't want to be there. I know every discussion is going to boil down to fit model. Every
yeah,
discussion.
yeah. But I'm gonna go because I just want to learn, and I'll definitely whatever I learn and clarification or whatever I get clarification on, I think, would be worth. I'll share that in the podcast for
Hey, I
sure.
think being at the Fit Expo for me, I was there I was at the first ever Pro Bikini show just by chance. It was in Culver City, first ever Pro Bikini show. Um, Being at the first ever Fit Model, I had somebody that was asking me to come to Fit Expo. I have a couple people that want to do it, so I was considering it. I despise going to the West Coast. It just messes with me as a human being, my sleep. But I used to love going to the Fit Expo. I just LA is a fun city. It's in downtown.
I've never been to LA. It is on my bucket list.
It's a fun city. You
It's a good
don't want
city.
to get stuck in traffic, but like where the show is at, it's pretty easy to get a little Airbnb and walk around. Yeah, the last time I was there was the COVID year, was actually the same day as Kobe Bryant died, so I'll never forget it as long as I
I
live.
remember that. Mhm.
But and the only reason I haven't been back is because, well, they didn't have it the next year, and then I don't think they had the bodybuilding the year after that, and I think they just started getting back to the routine of it. Um,
Yeah,
so
because I recall, like, when I remember when I was really starting to get into like the fitness space, and I followed a lot of like YouTubers, like some of the OG like vloggers. I remember, like all of them went to the LA Fit Expo, and it used to be like the big expo of the year outside of the Arnold and Olympia. But I almost feel like maybe it's ever since COVID, it doesn't. I don't know. Nobody really talks about it as much.
no,
Maybe it's just me, but it just seems like it's almost seems kind of like I don't know, like it's kind of fizzled down a lot.
agree. I mean, the first year I went there, I brought a videographer. I mean, I had no subscribers on YouTube, and I just documented my weekend. I went and trained at the Golds
Oh
with
yeah.
With Emily Hayden, and Emily Hayden was, I mean, she's definitely one of the biggest names in the bikini world, even though she wasn't necessarily a pro yet. She just had a huge following. Marie Wold,
Yeah.
Emily
Those,
Duncan, Amanda Bucci. I met all of them there. Brian DaCosta, who, ended up
those
becoming a
are
good
all
friend
the
of mine.
ones like you're naming are all the people I watched when I first like when I was in high school and I kind of first started to like follow people. Those were all that you just named all of them. And yeah,
I
they were
mean, I remember, like, why is there a line for this kid at the Gymshark booth? And it was Christian Guzman. I didn't really understand who he was at that time. Um, so yeah, the Fit Expo used to be, because I think there was a point, Lexi, where LA was the hub of the
Oh yeah,
fitness world.
Venice. Yes, Venice. I remember because
for
that's where like
sure.
Amanda lived. That's where Emily lived. I feel like there were a lot of those like fitness vloggers
Mhm.
that were moving there. But it's funny how just over
Yeah.
time, you notice there's always like that next new, city or wherever that people are moving to.
Now it's
Yeah.
Stewart,
Like,
Florida with Raw and Chris Bumstead, right?
yeah, it's like that Calvin Van Boger was out there. He was huge back then, like Bradley
Kyle,
Martin,
yeah,
all
he
of
was
them.
badass. I used to really love his physique. Yeah, so I'm hoping this is a return to some of the glory days. I don't know. It could just be a fool's gold situation where now they're just gonna, and that's why I said, is it the death of bikini? Because I think when I first became a coach in this sport, figure was the premier women's division. If you couldn't hack it in figure, you did bikini. That now we're talking like 2010, right? So that's when I first got into this. Now I feel like figure is so niched and bikini is the main division. And so with the numbers so drastically dropping, like you can't deny, if you've been to a show this year, outside of the last couple, the numbers have just been abysmal. The biggest show in Florida the whole year, did you guys know this was a holiday classic?
Oh, I
Really?
heard it was huge. It was like almost 400 competitors, wasn't it?
I'm
It
sad I
was
missed that.
250 individual competitors, over 500, I think, with crossovers, but it was all men.
Wow.
I don't mean it was
Well,
all men. It wasn't all men, but it was
I
heavily male focused.
I have one thought on, well, not one thought, but on the fit model division, I think very similar to what I do with the natural side of things they're going to with competing this year. If they handle it correctly, it will be a awesome, awesome success. If they don't, then it could just end up being kind of a cluster and it's going to take a long time or it'll fizzle out with it. If they handle it well, that would be great. But I think putting restrictions on how many classes you can have, how many open, how many novice, like if you can go to novice, true novice, and open, it just looks like a giant cash grab and it's dumb. But if you can reel in some of these promoters and make it where it makes sense, and then have the judging in a good spot and having everything clear and concise, I think it will attract a lot of people. But if a lot of people fall into this or try this out early and end up getting a bad taste in their mouth for it, it could end up backfiring on some things too. I hope it's just all handled well. I hope there's good communication with it. And I can tell you this, one issue I already have with this is, and I think it's how basically the NPC is a nonprofit and has a bunch of subcontractors that kind of work out, or independent contractors, promoters, is the fact that the restriction they have on it right now is you can't cross over. But as coaches, like we don't have any more information than most other people have right now. And there's the first show in a few weeks. We
Right.
need more information about this. And the fact there's not is, I don't think, a smart way to handle this, because it could be very big if handled correctly. But to
Well,
me,
I
it
think a
feels like it's
lot of
just
that
kind
is
of
because
thrown out
I
there
don't know how
at
well
last
planned
second.
this was.
I don't
I
think
don't
it's been well
know.
planned at all.
This was more, I think this was a response to, you know, them looking at the numbers over the course of the year and thinking, okay, that'll pick up at the end of the year. And it did not pick up at the end of
Mhm.
the year. This was the smallest North Americans, which is the last national show of the year before nationals, has ever been. 128 in open. And that includes crossovers, which was a lot of that 128. They would have had less than 100 competitors if there was no crossovers at North Americans. And I think, you know, those are the guys making the decisions. The people in Pittsburgh are looking at the numbers and they're like, okay, 3 years ago, I had 2,000 athletes at this show. This year, I had 1,000. Next year, am I going to lose money having a venue for 4 days like North Americans?
Yeah, the the pain point for me with this division is the only thing they came out and said is you can't cross over, which the one thing that doesn't make sense to me. They should have said there's open and one masters, and we're going to keep it two divisions to keep everything kind of, not two divisions, but two classes to keep everything a
Yeah,
little bit
I
more
think they
streamlined. They
should
should have
allow
gone that
crossovers,
route, but
but you
allow
can't have
crossovers.
novice and true novice your first year.
No, like
Everybody's a
why?
novice. Everybody's a true novice. So now you're going to have a girl that you're preventing from crossing over to bikini, doing 3 classes and spending just same amount of money. Which in my mind, that's why they're preventing the crossovers. They're like, A, we want to define, we don't want the same people winning, but B, we don't want these new competitors feeling like they need to do 3 or 4 classes because that's what coaches are going to push for. They're going to want to get these overalls and
Mhm.
blast that on their social media. Um, so yeah, it's
We need more information about this, and this seems like a last second thing that was kind of tossed together. And while the natural side of things doesn't seem like a last second thing, but I also have questions on qualifications, where you can turn pro, a lot of stuff with that. I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of clients asking questions on that we still don't have answers to. And the season starts in 3 weeks,
I
right?
know.
Now, granted, it's like the season really doesn't start for 3 months, but there's a few shows before that. Um, so they have time, but I think it needed to be a little more clearly defined, being like shows this start in April, shows moving forward, like having very firm goalpost with it. And it takes away a lot of the confusion around it and can start the planning process
Yeah, so it's
with it.
interesting. I have the show up here and I'm looking at the true novice numbers. So at this, remember I told you there was only 15 in open bikini at the LA show last year. So there was in true novice, they had true novice C, which had 1 girl, true novice B, which had 5, and true novice A. So they had
They had 3
8,
true novice.
9 in true novice. Those girls, not all of them crossed over and did open. So
See, again, that doesn't make any sense because most even bigger shows only have 2 classes for novice or true novice.
well, and that's I don't mind that because they had an overall at least or whatever. I'm just thinking like if I'm a coach, I'm not putting somebody in true novice and not putting them in open. Yeah, maybe in I don't know. It's just so yeah, I'm agree with you, but I don't love that they actually are offering true novice and novice. I think they should treat it like the Arnold at this year. They should just do 35 and over as all the masters. And I know some of my 50-year-old women are going to be
Or
like, but
40 and
Paul,
over. Or 40 and over.
yeah, but Paul, nothing. There's going to be 5 girls competing. It's not so. you're going to have, and you can do open as well. And honestly, you might win both Masters and Open at this show. You don't know.
Yeah.
But
And I'll be real
trotting a
honest
girl
too.
out, trotting true novice A and having one girl, true novice B and having 3 girls, true novice C and having 2 girls. Okay. Yeah.
This division, people are going to like this, but it's look, it's fit model. It's 100% geared towards newer athletes, newer younger girls.
Yeah.
That's what the division's geared towards. You don't need a bunch of masters classes with a division geared towards younger, new competitors.
Well,
That's the
I
reason
think-
for this division.
I think
And I'm
you're
a
right.
masters. Like I get it. Like it's not made for.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you're right, like for the most part, but I do think there are going to be some girls who are just like, and we all know them, like genetically girls that they are like they work their asses off. They've been doing this for years and years and years, but like genetically, they just don't put on muscle very
Mhm.
easily. I think this division will definitely attract those types of people too, who are
For sure.
just really very petite and don't put on that muscle well or easily.
They compete in the open or compete in the over 40.
All right. And we're going to end with this because it's time to go, but I'm going to finish with this because I want to prepare you guys for what's about to happen.
All right, go for it.
There is going to be an entry-level men's division this year.
You think this year they'll do
That
it?
is my opinion, because if bikini has become unattainable for women, men's physique is unobtainable for men.
Well,
So
Tyler
if-
actually talked about that on the Honey's podcast where they talked about the men's division. He said that's absolutely something they're discussing.
Well,
But if you
then
watch
I'm
the
late
whole-
to the party. I didn't watch that podcast and I apologize, but I mean,
But it's not out. Like they haven't announced anything.
if
with
they
that.
have 50 girls show up in LA, watch how fast they come out with the men's fit model division.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
if you
better not
But
call it fit model.
Women and men are different. Men want to look like bodybuilders. Women want to look like glamorous, beautiful women, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Not many women are like, God, I wish I had, 3 clear head striations on my delts. And every bro is like, bro, if I could just get more fucking chest striations, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, well, if you guys listened all the way through, comment
Paul's awesome.
Paul is the king. Paul is the
Paul's
king.
the king. There you go.
oh, all right. All right. Yay for me. Yay.
Paul is the king. Well, thanks guys for listening and
Strong hands. It's
Oh,
my
really?
strong hands.
Paul. Oh my, you guys are missing out if you're not watching on YouTube.
Do you get that reference, Paul? Yes, my strong hand.
Oh, I always think of these as the Judith hands from Saturday Night Live. And I'm Judith. Then we get that reference anyway.
I'm missing.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all.
Guys.